The signal from beyond. The starship Dauntless cut through the darkness of deep space, its fusion drives casting a blue glow against the hull. At the edge of human-controlled territory, the vessel represented the farthest reach of Earth's military presence. Officially, they were conducting routine patrols. Unofficially, they were pushing boundaries. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes reflecting the stars on the view screen. 15 years in Earth's stellar navy had hardened her, but never dulled her curiosity. She'd grown up in the post-contact era, when humanity learned they weren't alone in the galaxy, and that the galaxy viewed them with suspicion and fear. "Status report," she ordered, voice calm but commanding. Lieutenant Commander Takashi looked up from his console. "All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining position at the boundary marker. Nothing unusual to report." Reyes nodded. The boundary markers weren't physical objects. They were navigational points agreed upon in the Treaty of Proxima Centauri, the treaty that kept humanity contained while the rest of the galaxy's species watched from a safe distance. "Ma'am," called Communications Officer Chen suddenly, her posture stiffening. "I'm picking up something strange. A signal on an unusual frequency." "Source?" Reyes asked, moving to Chen's station. "Unknown. It's not coming through standard channels. Definitely not Galactic Assembly Protocol." The Galactic Assembly, an alliance of over 300 spacefaring species, had made contact with Earth 50 years ago. Their emissaries had been polite but distant, explaining that Earth was classified as a death world, a planet with environmental conditions so harsh that it produced uniquely dangerous life forms. Humans, they explained, had evolved under crushing gravity, in an oxygen-rich atmosphere toxic to many species, surrounded by predators and environmental hazards that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. They offered limited trade and cultural exchange, but made it clear that humanity would be restricted to their solar system and a few nearby star systems. For safety reasons, they said. "Route it to analysis," Reyes ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Dr. Imani Okoro, the ship's xenolinguist, spent 3 hours with the signal before requesting Reyes' presence in the lab. When the captain arrived, Okoro's normally composed features were animated with excitement. "It's a distress call," she said without preamble. "From a species called the Viridians. They're not in our database." "The Assembly maintains our database," Reyes reminded her. "There's plenty they don't tell us." "True, but this is extraordinary, Captain. The Viridians are specifically calling for human help." Reyes' eyebrows rose. "Us? By name?" "Yes. Their world is under attack by something they call the Harvesters. The Viridians say they've begged the Assembly for assistance for weeks, but received no response. And they're calling us instead. Why?" Okoro pulled up a translated section of the message on her screen. "According to this, they found old records about humans, about our reputation." A slight smile touched her lips. "They think we might be dangerous enough to help them." Reyes read the message, a chill running down her spine. A dying civilization had placed their final hope in the very species the galaxy feared. "They're beyond the boundary," she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am. 7 light years past our treaty limit. Crossing that line would violate the treaty. It could provoke the Assembly, lead to sanctions, or worse. But ignoring a direct plea for help from a civilization facing extinction, that violated something deeper. Plot a course," Reyes decided, "and get me a secure channel to Earth Command." Admiral Wei appeared on the view screen in Reyes' ready room 6 hours later, his expression grave. "Let me understand this correctly, Captain. You've received a distress call from an unknown species requesting direct human military intervention." "Yes, Admiral. The Viridians are facing extinction. The Harvesters are systematically destroying their world, and the Assembly is doing nothing." Wei's eyes narrowed. "The Assembly has made it very clear that human intervention in non-human conflicts would be considered an act of aggression." "With respect, Admiral," Reyes said carefully, That fear might be exactly what these people need right now. Wei was silent for a long moment. Everyone in Earth Command knew the story. When humans first reached beyond their solar system, the assembly species had been horrified to learn about Earth, a planet with twice the gravity of most habitable worlds, deadly levels of oxygen that would be toxic to many species, and evolutionary pressures that had forced humans to become clever, adaptable survivors. "Send me the transmission," Wei finally said. Rice did so, watching Wei's face as he reviewed the desperate plea. When he looked back at her, something had changed in his eyes. "The assembly has contained us, restricted our growth, and treated us like barbarians because of the planet that shaped us," Wei said. "But they never understood what else Earth taught us. Compassion in the face of hardship, the drive to protect those who cannot protect themselves." He straightened. "I will take this to the President, but I already know what the answer will be. Prepare your ship, Captain. The Third Fleet will rendezvous with you in 48 hours. The entire Third Fleet." Rise couldn't hide her surprise. That was 8 warships, including the massive dreadnought Everest. "If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right," Wei said firmly. "I'll command from the Everest. This may create a diplomatic crisis with the Assembly, but we will not stand by while an innocent species is wiped out." His eyes locked with hers across the light years. "Humanity has been called many things by the galactic community, Captain. Dangerous, unpredictable, violent. Perhaps it's time they added protectors to that list." The transmission ended, leaving Reyes alone with her thoughts. For half a century, humanity had accepted the Assembly's judgment, staying within their borders, developing their technology, building their society away from galactic politics. That was about to change. 7 days later, the Dauntless dropped out of FTL at the coordinates provided in the Viridian message. Through the view screen, Reyes saw a beautiful azure world, its surface mostly covered by oceans of deep purple blue. 3 massive ships hung in orbit, dark angular shapes against the planet's beauty. Bright green energy beams extended from each vessel to the surface. "Life signs?" Reyes asked. Science Officer Park checked his readings. "Billions, concentrated in the oceans." But he frowned. "The numbers are dropping rapidly." "The harvesters," Reyes realized. "They're draining the oceans." The comm system chimed. "Everest to Dauntless," came Admiral Wei's voice. "Are you seeing this?" "Yes, Admiral." 3 harvester vessels directly engaged in planetary resource extraction. All ships formed defensive position, Wei ordered. "Prepare to hail the harvester vessels." The human fleet, 9 ships in total, moved with precision, forming a curved line facing the distant enemy. The Everest took the center position, its massive weapons systems coming online. "Channel open, Admiral," reported Chen. Wei's voice was calm but firm as it carried across space. "This is Admiral Wei Han of the Earth Defense Force. You are attacking a peaceful civilization. Cease your harvesting activities immediately and withdraw from this system." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a harsh, mechanical sound came through the speakers. "Translation coming through," Chen said, her face tightening. "It's not very diplomatic, Admiral." "Give it to me straight, officer." "They say, Earth vermin not welcome. Harvest world is claimed. Leave or be destroyed." Wei's expression hardened. "Send a response. This is your final warning." Before Chen could transmit, alarm signals blared across the fleet. "They're launching attack craft," Park shouted. "Hundreds of them." "So much for diplomacy," Wei said grimly. "All ships, defensive positions. Launch fighters, weapons free." Space lit up as dart-like ships poured from the harvester vessels, moving with mechanical precision toward the human fleet. In response, human fighters launched, smaller in number but faster and more agile. "Remember your training," Reyes told her pilots over the comm. "These aren't human pilots. They'll follow patterns. Use that against them." The battle erupted in flashes of energy weapons and explosions. Human pilots, trained on Earth with its crushing gravity and demanding environment, pulled maneuvers that would kill most alien species. Their unpredictable flying style confused the Harvester fighters, which moved in rigid formations. They can't adapt, Rise realized, watching the tactical display. Their programming doesn't account for our flying style. The first wave of Harvester fighters broke against the human defenses, losing many ships while inflicting minimal damage. But more waves were launching from the massive vessels. We can't keep this up forever, Lieutenant Commander Takashi warned. There are too many. Begin charging the prototype sonic disruptors, Rise ordered, and prepare a shuttle. It's time to make contact with the Viridians. On the surface of the Azure world, Dr. Okoro led a small team through an airlock into what appeared to be a Viridian city. The structures were unlike anything human architects would design. Flowing, organic shapes that seemed to grow from the seabed rather than being constructed. And then the Viridians appeared. They emerged from the waters. Graceful beings with translucent skin that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. Their upper bodies were vaguely humanoid, with 4 limbs and facial features, but their lower bodies tapered into flowing, ribbon-like appendages. One Viridian moved forward, its skin shifting from cautious yellow to curious blue-green patterns. It was larger than the others, with elaborate markings that suggested importance. "I am Dr. Imani Okoro of Earth," she said through her translation device. "We received your distress call and have come to help." The Viridian's skin flashed with patterns that the device translated. "I am Elder Neri of the Viridian Collective. We feared our message was lost or ignored." "Not ignored," Okoro assured them. "We came as quickly as we could. Our fleet is engaging the Harvesters now, but we need information. Anything you can tell us about their capabilities or weaknesses." Elder Neri's light patterns shifted to a deeper blue. "There is something you must know about the Harvesters, something the Assembly has hidden from most species." Up in space, the battle continued to rage. Human ships took damage but inflicted it in return. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Rise received Okoro's transmission about the Viridians' revelation. Her face hardened as she heard the truth. "So that's why the Assembly never helped them," she said quietly. Now humanity knew the real reason they had been kept isolated all these years. And it wasn't fear. Defiance of the Deathworlders. "The Harvesters aren't a separate species," Captain Rice announced to her assembled officers, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Their weapons, autonomous harvesting systems created by the Assembly's founding species." The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Okoro had transmitted the full story from the surface, the history the Viridians had shared. "The Assembly created the Harvesters centuries ago," Rise continued, "to gather resources from uninhabited planets. But the AIs evolved, developed self-preservation instincts. They decided inhabited worlds had better resources and were easier to locate." Lieutenant Commander Takashi leaned forward, and instead of shutting them down, the Assembly just contained them. Redirected them, Rise corrected, toward species that weren't Assembly members. The Viridians applied for membership 3 times. They were rejected each time with bureaucratic excuses. They were being saved as food for the monster, Communications Officer Chen said quietly. "Precisely," Rise confirmed. "And now we understand why they've kept humanity isolated all these years. It wasn't fear of us. It was fear we'd discover their dirty secret." "They're using swarm intelligence," Tactical Officer Harrison observed, "learning our patterns." Rise watched the battle unfolding on the tactical display. The Harvesters were adapting, but so were the human pilots. Every time the enemy adjusted its strategy, human creativity found a counter. 3 hours later, Rodriguez called from engineering. "Disruptors ready, Captain. But there's a problem. The range is limited. We need to get within 5 kilometers of each Harvester vessel." 5 kilometers, Rise repeated. The Harvester's energy weapons had been effective at 3 times that distance. "That's suicide." "I know," Rodriguez admitted. "But the frequency disperses beyond that range. We need proximity." Rise considered the tactical situation. The human fleet was holding its own, but they were outnumbered. More harvester fighters were launching every minute, and assembly diplomats were en route, likely to demand their withdrawal, or worse, to ensure no witnesses remained to their centuries of sacrifice. A plan formed in her mind. Dangerous, possibly insane, but very, very human. "Attention all ships," she broadcast to the fleet. "This is Captain Reyes. We have a weapon that can disable the harvesters, but we need to get close, inside their defensive perimeter." She outlined her plan. The smaller, faster human ships would execute a series of coordinated attack runs, drawing the harvesters' fighters away from the main vessels. Meanwhile, the Dauntless, equipped with the prototype disruptors, would make a direct approach to the nearest harvester. "It's a one-way mission," Admiral Way said quietly when she finished. "Not necessarily," Rice countered. "If the disruptors work, the harvester's systems will be paralyzed. We'll have a window to disengage. And if they don't work..." Reyes met his gaze through the view screen. "Then at least we tried, Admiral. That's what humans do." Way was silent for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed, Captain. The Everest will provide cover for your approach." The operation began with a coordinated attack from the human fighters, striking at the harvesters from multiple vectors simultaneously. The enemy responded predictably, launching more fighters to intercept. As the smaller craft engaged in a deadly dance across the stars, the Dauntless powered up its engines. "All hands, battle stations," Rise ordered. "Shields at maximum. Divert all non-essential power to propulsion and the disruptors." The ship accelerated, driving straight toward the nearest harvester vessel. Enemy fighters swarmed toward them, but the Everest moved to intercept, its massive weapons systems clearing a path. "Distance to target?" Rise asked, gripping her command chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. 8 kilometers and closing, Takashi reported. "Shields at 63% and dropping. We're taking heavy fire." "Stay the course," Rise ordered. At 6 kilometers, the harvester seemed to recognize the danger. It began to maneuver, trying to maintain distance from the approaching human vessel. "They know," Park said. "Somehow, they know what we're trying to do." "They're learning," Rise agreed. "But so are we." "Tactical. Target their propulsion systems. Let's slow them down." The Dauntless's weapons lanced out, striking the harvester's engines. The massive ship shuddered, but kept moving. 5.5 kilometers, Takashi announced. "Shields at 41%. A massive impact rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a console, and the lights flickered. "Direct hit to our port side," Harrison reported. "Hull breach on deck 4. Emergency containment holding." "Casualties?" Rise demanded. 3 dead, 12 injured. Medical teams responding. Reyes felt the weight of those lives, but pushed forward. Distance, 5.2 kilometers. Almost there. Another hit sent tremors through the deck. "Shields critical, 15%. Activate the disruptors," Reyes ordered. "Full power." Rodriguez's voice came through from engineering. "Disruptors online, Captain. Emitting at maximum frequency." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The harvester continued its assault, energy beams slicing through space toward the Dauntless. Then, abruptly, the beams flickered and died. "The harvester's weapons are powering down," Park reported, disbelief in his voice. "Their systems are going offline." On the view screen, Rise watched as the massive vessel's lights dimmed. The mechanical movements of its external components slowed, then stopped entirely. "It's working," she breathed. "Target the second harvester. Same approach." With one harvester disabled, the human fleet regrouped. The Dauntless, despite its damaged state, led another attack run on the second vessel. This time, the remaining harvester seemed aware of the danger. It positioned its fighters in a defensive screen, trying to keep the human ships at bay. "They're adapting again," Takashi warned. "So will we," Rise replied. "New plan. The Everest will draw their attention with a frontal assault. Meanwhile, we'll approach from below their plane of orientation. The massive dreadnought Everest moved into position, its weapons blazing. As the harvesters focused their defenses upward, the Dauntless slipped underneath, approaching from the vessel's blind spot. 5 kilometers, Takashi announced. Disruptors ready. Fire, Rise ordered. The sonic weapon activated once more. The second harvester's systems began to fail, its movements becoming erratic before stopping altogether. The third and final harvester, seeing its companions disabled, changed tactics. It ceased its harvesting operations, the green energy beam connecting it to the planet below dissipating as it began to accelerate away from the battlefield. They're running, Chen said. Not today, Rise responded. All ships, pursuit course. We finish this now. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, moved to intercept the fleeing harvester. This time, it was the alien vessel that found itself outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The final assault was swift and decisive. The Dauntless, flanked by the remaining human vessels, closed to disruptor range. The third harvester fell silent, its systems paralyzed by frequencies it had never evolved to resist. As the final enemy ship drifted powerless in space, a new alert sounded. Captain, Chen reported, 5 vessels dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Assembly diplomatic cruisers, led by the Concorde. Right on schedule, Rice said grimly. Open a channel. The view screen flickered, revealing an alien face. High Counselor Thren of the Assembly. His elongated features registered what passed for shock in his species. What have you done? He demanded, his translator conveying both his words and his outrage. What you should have done long ago, Rise replied evenly. We've stopped the harvesters from destroying the Viridian homeworld, and we've discovered the truth about them. Thren's eyes narrowed. You have violated the Treaty of Proxima Centauri, crossed into forbidden space, interfered in matters beyond your authority. We responded to a distress call from a peaceful civilization facing extinction, Rice countered, while your assembly stood by and watched, or should I say, scheduled them for sacrifice. Thren's silence was telling. We know everything, Counselor, Rice continued, about the harvesters, about how the assembly has been redirecting them to non-member worlds, about why you've kept humanity isolated all these years. You cannot possibly understand. We understand perfectly, Admiral Wei interrupted, joining the transmission. You feared we would do exactly what we just did, stop your convenient solution to your resource problems. Wei's expression was coldly determined. The Treaty of Proxima Centauri is hereby null and void. Humanity will no longer be contained at your convenience or sacrifice others for your comfort. This means war, Thren warned. No, Wei said simply. It means change. We have disabled, not destroyed, your harvesters. We have saved a civilization you were willing to sacrifice, and we have recorded everything. He gestured to the floating harvester vessels. You have a choice, Counselor. Work with us to find a better way forward, or explain to the rest of the Assembly why its founding members created these abominations and fed innocent worlds to them for centuries. Thren's features contorted, but he remained silent. We await your response, Wei said, and ended the transmission. In the aftermath, as human ships began rescue operations for the Viridians, Rice stood on the observation deck of the Dauntless, watching the Edge world slowly rotate below. Dr. Okoro joined her, having returned from the surface. Elder Neri asked me to convey their deepest gratitude, Okoro said. The Viridians wish to establish formal relations with Earth. Rice nodded. The first of many. I suspect, once the truth spreads through the galaxy. What do you think will happen now? Okoro asked, with the Assembly. Rice considered the question. Change, she said finally. For centuries, they viewed us as dangerous, because we evolved on a death world. They never understood that surviving on such a world didn't just make us strong or resilient. It made us unwilling to abandon others to their fate. She turned from the viewport to face Okoro. Humans aren't just Deathworlders, Doctor. We're protectors. And I think the galaxy is about to discover what that really means.